And here now to answer questions on how Houthi and Iranian threats to ships transiting the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden have affected global security and commerce is Ian Ralby. He's the founder and CEO of IR Consilium and an expert on maritime issues. Ian, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with how these attacks have really changed how container ship owners move goods and how has that affected prices here in the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a really dramatic change in containerized cargo movements over the last few months. Since the 19th of November, we've seen an escalation by the Houthis that has led to mostly the container ships choosing to reroute around the continent of Africa. And that has made a delay in a lot of our goods, but it hasn't been as dramatic an impact as some feared initially. The problem is that the Houthis are continuing to escalate. And so the full economic impact and overall impact of the situation may yet be felt.
And it's not just finished goods that we're talking about here. Plenty of raw products coming from India and Asia must now take that more circuitous route. What goods have been most affected?
Well, really, the containerized goods have been the most affected, but we're now at a place where, because most of the containerized goods have moved, what's going through the Red Sea still are bulk goods like dry materials, grains, food supplies, and oil and gas and chemical supplies through tankers. We could see every type of cargo that moves by sea affected, and if we think about it more carefully, that is literally 90% of our world trade that is affected. So it's a huge globalized impact for all of us.
Commerce aside, if we can really even put that to the side for a moment, but the Houthis in Iran could cause an environmental catastrophe if they strike an oil tanker. How much do African and Gulf countries depend on that water staying clean?
It is a great question and a critical issue. The Red Sea is different than most other bodies of water because along the coast are desalination plants that provide the drinking water for tens of millions of people along both the Arabian Peninsula coast and the African Red Sea coast. And that means that there are tens of millions of people who will only have a 3-day lead supply on drinking water if an oil spill starts to make those desalination plants come offline. The humanitarian crisis that would come from that issue is almost uncalculable.
The Houthis have attacked shipping now for 3 months. They say it's in defense of Gaza. But what is it really that they hope to accomplish here?
The Houthis aren't really interested in Gaza. They haven't been, that has never been their main motivation. They're interested in Israel insofar as that is part of their overall strategy. The Houthis have been a movement for decades that have been militarized for most of the last 2 decades and at war with the government of Yemen for the last decade, all focused on first taking over all of Yemen, second heading towards Mecca, and third heading towards Jerusalem, where they ultimately hope to have a seat for their globalized holy empire. They do not care about Israel and Gaza. If it ended today, they would continue to attack shipping because they are loving the attention they are getting. They're loving the support that has come with it, both from Iran, their main backer, as well as others. They have recruited heavily off of these new attacks in this situation overall, and we've seen their numbers swell. So they are very energized by all of this, and they're really loving the attention.
Well, the U.S. and allies have been guarding ships now for months, on occasion struck Houthi weapon stockpiles and guidance systems. Where do you see this conflict headed?
Well, it's escalated sort of month on month. We saw the initial attack on the Galaxy Leader be a sort of a boarding and a capture of that ship, which they then turned into a tourist attraction. They then moved to their second phase, which was the aerial bombardment, both through drones and missiles of ships. But really, at this point, the Houthis are having fewer and fewer targets to play with outside of the U.S. Navy and other navies. Now, the EU has launched its naval mission, which is arriving now, and that may help change the picture a little bit because as an economic force, rather than a pure military force or military alliance, they may take a slightly different approach. But the time may have come at this point for us to maybe look at whether the U.S. Navy is better to be focusing elsewhere and allow the EU to carry some of the water for us on this situation as the Houthis continue to look for ways to gain attention. And if we take away some of that attention, they may look for it elsewhere.
What a wealth of knowledge, Ian Ralby. We thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.